Alright, welcome to today's lesson on Porter's 5 Forces. Now, Michael Porter is a Harvard business professor and a highly influential business strategist, and he helped to develop the 5 Forces model that we use today to analyze the industry that a particular company is in. And once that analysis has been performed, you can then generate a strategy framework that can be used to maintain a sustainable competitive advantage over your competitors. Now, Porter believes that the best way to ensure this competitive advantage is to understand the competitive landscape that you are operating in. And by doing this, you're understanding all of the 5 forces that he identifies that act upon that particular industry. This analysis will indicate whether a particular market is either attractive to enter for the first time, or whether it's worthwhile to maintain your presence in that market. To do this, you have to understand the market and your competition. This is similar to the PASC analysis that we talked about the other day, in that we're analyzing our external factors as opposed to our internal factors. Now, this diagram shows us what that 5 forces model looks like. So you can see central to this model is we have the forces of the existing competitors. So that rivalry that's existing is enacting forces upon your particular company and industry, causing you to raise your prices, lower your prices, better your product, and so on. Acting on those, we have 4 other outside forces that act on the industry. So we have a threat of new entrants coming into the industry, which makes for new competition. We also have a threat of substitute products or services that could take some of your customers away from your particular product and move them toward those other products or services. Then we finally have the influence of the buying power and the bargaining power of the suppliers that act on your industry as well. So we'll take a look at each of those a little more closely. The first one we're going to look at is the threat of new entrants. This is the idea that because profitable markets that yield a high return on your investments are going to be highly desirable by other companies. So they're going to have more competition coming in and entering that particular area because they want to also maximize their profits. This happens a lot unless new firms can be blocked as a result of barriers to entry. And these are things like having a high startup cost in this particular industry, or limited access to suppliers or to distributors, right? If these are not there, then the new entrants can enter into the industry, and the profit will drop to competitive levels because you have to lower your price and do other things to make yourself more competitive. An example of this would be the web design industry. Because this is a very easy market to enter, there are very few requirements that you have to enter this particular industry. All you really need are the skills to create a website, the initiative to do it, and the software in order to be able to create it. And bang, you got yourself a company competing. The second threat we have is the threat of substitute products. So this is again the idea of a product that isn't direct competitor towards us, but more of an indirect competitor. They have some sort of product or service that is going to take people away from our product or service. Okay, and this, as a result, makes the overall market more sensitive to the price because I want to keep my price point low enough that I'm going to keep my customers from moving to that other product or service. An example of an industry that has this as an issue would be do-it-yourself products, right? These do-it-yourself products compete with many service industries, including home contractors, electricians, plumbers, and so on, because it offers an incentive for the person to do it themselves for a fraction of the cost. We also have supplier power. This is people who provide or sell raw materials, components, and services, like a consulting service or technical assistance or so on. They can hold power over your particular firm, right? Because they're selling to your firm. And those suppliers may withhold those services or raise the prices of the services, which just causes pressure on your particular company. It's going to cut into your profit margins, or it's going to cause you to increase your price to make sure you maintain those same profit margins. An example of an industry where you can see this would be in the diamond industry, right? Companies that mine and produce diamonds have control over those diamonds. They can set the price of those diamonds. They can choose to withhold a product to a particular jeweler, right? Or to restrict access to sales to particular jewelers, which makes the jewelry people very reliant upon those suppliers. We also have buyer power, and this is the other end of the spectrum, right? This is the ability of the customers who are purchasing from your company to put your firm under pressure, right? This could be a result of less buyers than there are sellers, so they can pick and choose who they're going to buy from. The cost of switching brands being very low, so it's not very difficult for one particular person to switch from one brand to another. Or the buyer purchases at a very large volume, causing them to have such a big contract that if they choose to take that volume away and go to somebody else, it's going to cause a massive problem for your particular company. Those are just some examples of what can be caused for buyer power. Okay? As a result of these, you can end up with lower prices, or you can have to increase your quality or increase the variety of your services to maintain a competition level. An example of this would be supermarkets. Supermarkets maintain a control over their suppliers because they can produce so many things from them at once, right? So they can dictate the terms, set the prices, and they can end their agreements at any time and just go to a different supplier for those same particular products. And lastly, we have the existing competitors. The major determinant of competitiveness in a particular industry is what competitors we already have in that industry. Sometimes rivals are going to compete on price and try and have the lowest price. Sometimes rivals are going to compete on other dimensions like the quality of the product, the amount of marketing they have, the innovation they have, and so on. Once we've analyzed our particular industry, we can start to develop a strategy. So the 5 forces model can help us answer the question, is this an attractive market for us to compete in? Once we've answered that and determined that we do want to compete in this market, we can then start to develop a business level strategic decision, which is driven by 2 factors. Number 1, the market scope. How broad or narrow is our target market? And secondly, the source of the competitive advantage. How are we going to compete with our competitors? Are we going to try and have a lower price than them, or are we going to try and differentiate our product somehow from their product? This creates a general grid of the different types of strategies we could have. So we could go with a broad scope in an attempt to differentiate, or we could go with a narrow scope and be cost effective, right? Have the lowest costs. We'll take a look at these individual strategies now. So the first one we have is differentiation. So this means we have a broad scope, and we're going to try and compete through differentiating our product from our competitors. This is where an organization's resources and attention are directed towards distinguishing our products from those of the competition, not looking at price, but how do we make our product different. So an example here would be Coke versus Pepsi, right? They're not trying to necessarily be the cheapest, but they're trying to market themselves differently. Pepsi has its taste challenge, saying that theirs tastes better, and so on. The second strategy we can have is cost leadership. Again, this is also a broad scope, but now instead of competing through differentiating our product, we're competing by trying to offer a cheaper price. Okay? An example of this would be President's Choice Cola, right? So they have the same products as Pepsi or Coca-Cola, but they're trying to compete by offering their product for cheaper. Focused differentiation is when we have a narrow scope, but now we're still going to compete through differentiation of our product. Okay, so we're going to try and offer a unique product to a small segment of the company. So, for example, here we have A&W Root Beer or Canada Dry. Right? They're offering only one differentiated product, which is sold at the same price as Coca-Cola and Pepsi and so on. The other way we can do it is focused cost leadership. So again, here we have narrow scope and we have competition through a lower cost. Okay, so I try and specialize in a particular segment, and in that segment I want to be the provider with the lowest possible cost. So example here would be something like Big Red Soda, right? They offer cream soda at a fraction of the cost of Fanta and Coca-Cola and Pepsi and all those other companies. That's it. That's all we have time for today. We'll see you in class tomorrow where we can practice what we've learned.